One needs only to glance at the reviews of either one of Dinosaur Polo Club's games to see a general consensus amongst the reviewers. The games have minimalist designs, but complex and challenging gameplay. One can easily witness this while actually playing the games. On the surface, the games look almost deceptively simple. Even when you begin playing, they seem simple for some time, before devolving into a chaotic game of balance and frantic reorganizing. Today we'll look into how the studio balanced this simple and minimalist look and feel with complex and challenging gameplay. Dinosaur Polo Club is a game development studio based in Wellington, New Zealand. As of 2023, the studio is composed of quite a few people, 24 to be exact, but Minimetro, the studio's first game, was originally a side project for the Ludum Dare Game Jam by brothers Robert and Peter Curry. In this game jam, the game received tied first place in the Innovation category. At the time, the game was known as Mind the Gap and was a simpler version of the game of today, although quite reminiscent of it. One would connect lines with stations similar to today, but because I couldn't find the game anywhere, I am not sure if there were any other features. After the game jam, the two brothers began developing the game part-time, eventually switching to full-time work on the project around 2014, and ended up publishing the first early access version in August 2014. They released the game for PC on November 6, 2015. The Android and iOS versions followed on October 18, 2016. The music for the game was composed by American composer Richard Vreeland, also known as Disasterpiece, who would go on to score the sequel Motorways as well. His score is procedurally changing depending on the actions you, as the player, take. We'll discuss it in more detail a bit later in the video. The two brothers continued to maintain and expand upon the game, eventually beginning work on the game's sequel, Motorways, with a much larger studio. This game was released on Apple Arcade on September 19, 2019 and on PC on July 20, 2021. The goal of this game is to connect houses with shops. Both games are continually supported and maintained to this day, recently getting a large update. As you load into a city in Minimetro, you are greeted by three stations, a triangle, a circle, and a square. As you create your first line, Richard Vreeland's simple yet elegant notes accompanying you, the first passengers begin requesting transfers to other stations. The train transfers the first passengers, a new station appears. It will either appear on track of your existing line, allowing you to extend the first line, or it can appear to the side, requiring the creation of a different line. In each case, a third station will appear after some time, this one most probably requiring you to create another line. At this point, more stations will begin appearing, and you will most likely utilize a bridge or two. As the text in the top right reaches Sunday, a clock will begin ticking. When finished, a dialog box will appear. Week 2. You have a new locomotive for your metro. You click on the locomotive and are given a choice between some of these upgrades. You choose one and continue on to week 2. In the Motorways, the beginning is similar. You start with a house and a shop. People from the house want to go to the shop and back. Simple as. Very soon, sooner even than in Minimetro, the second house appears. After a while, another shop, and a house along with it, appears. Before long, a dialog box appears. As in Minimetro, this appears when the day of the week is Sunday. Week 2. Which upgrade would you like for your network? You are given a choice between two of these upgrade options, each accompanied by a certain quantity of road tiles. You choose one, and week 2 begins. Week 2 in Minimetro is fairly uneventful for some time, but after a while, a station will appear that will necessitate the creation of another line. Before long, you reach the end of week 2 without much trouble, and the same process as before occurs. Week 3 begins. In Motorways, however, week 2 signifies a significant change in gameplay. A shop of a different color appears, a house along with it. You connect them with their own separate route, as mixing traffic flows is often bad for your city. Sometime later, however, mixing traffic flows will sadly become unavoidable. Sometimes this happens right during week 2, sometimes you go almost the entire game without doing so, sometimes it happens during week 5, etc. etc. Before long, you reach the end of week 2 and are presented with the same upgrade options. No matter which one you choose, you will be given some road tiles as well. What may happen next is some reorganization of your network. Throughout the first 2 weeks, the games are generally easy. You would have to fuck something up on purpose to lose. The networks in this stage of the game are very simple in the design as well. There may be a few bridges here and there, some connections, but nothing more. In mini-motorways as well, there are several shops, accompanied of course by several houses, but most likely no motorways, no roundabouts, no traffic lights, etc. as of yet. Point is, mechanically, the games begin simply, relaxingly even, and the visuals match this as well. They match the gameplay very well, being quite simple, utilizing just a few colors and elements such as stations, yellow lines, blue lines, houses, etc. Both the cars and the trains move smoothly, even at bends and uncomfortable turns, creating a sleek experience. One can be easily mistaken in thinking that the game's minimalist aesthetic and design was intentional because of just how well it works and is made, but this was not actually the case. According to Peter Curry in a 2016 interview with Gamasutra, now GameDeveloper.com, the aesthetic came from the fact that both he and his brother are programmers, so they did not want to create complex art. To improve our odds of actually finishing and shipping a game, we set ourselves a number of strict constraints when coming up with ideas to prototype. The most important was minimal production art, where both coders. That cut down our options to a handful. The music of the game correlates to this as well. I say music, but the soundtrack is not actually a set composition, but a procedurally generated soundtrack that changes depending on your actions. When a new station appears, a sound plays. When you connect a line, a sound plays. When a train stops the station, a sound plays. In the mini-motorways as well, a new house appears, a sound plays. When you build a road, a sound plays, etc. This makes the score increase in intensity gradually, along the game's difficulty. As week 3 begins, another problematic situation may occur in minimetro. You may need to connect a distant station with your network, or you may need to place another train on an existing line to avoid overcrowding. You may also need to replan some existing lines. Near the end of this week, your network will begin looking quite pretty and expensive. When week 3 ends, you are offered more upgrades. During week 3 in mini-motorways, the first hints of congestion may occur, and another shop may appear, requiring some rearrangement. At the end of this week, yet another shop may appear, maybe quite far from your existing network. Soon you're offered another upgrade. In most playthroughs, week 3 is the point at which you stop focusing more on designing your network and start focusing more on optimization of your network. With the increasing quantity of stations or houses, optimization becomes very important. In the background, Richard Vreeland's score gains in intensity. Week 4 will commonly be the week during which your first station begins overcrowding. While not a rule, most often than not, the first station to begin doing so will be located near the end of one of your lines, since at this point they are getting quite long, and trains take a long time to do a full loop. The easiest way to fix this issue is by increasing capacity of a line, either by adding another train on it or by adding a carriage to an existing train. Soon you should be able to fix the issue and receive another upgrade. In mini-motorways, congestion will start occurring more commonly. During week 4 as well, a new color of shop may appear, either requiring you to connect it to your network or connect it to its house via a separate route. Soon you will receive another upgrade. In general, week 4 is similar to week 3 with optimization of your network defining it. During week 5 in a mini-metro, you may face another problem. A station that you just can't find a good way to connect other than creating a separate line for just it. Not an optimal solution of course, but there is possibility for further expansion here, so it's not that big a deal. Some overcrowding will also occur, but your network should be solid enough by now that overcrowding will commonly resolve itself. Before long, you reach the end of week 5. In Motorways, your first mall will most likely appear out of shop. Malls have more capacity but also have more demand, necessitating further planning. A new shop may also appear. Before long, however, you reach the end of week 5 in Motorways as well without much trouble. Week 5 marks the appearance of the 4th non-optional feature of your network in Motorways, the other 3 being houses, roads, and shops. And let's just briefly talk about that. There are only 4 actually required to exist features in this game: houses, roads, shops, and newly malls. Everything other, all the upgrades you gain, the decoration, etc., is optional and only serves to make these 4 features more efficient. Nevertheless, the game manages to be entertaining for hours on end and quite complex after some time at that. This comes from the fact that you have these limited resources, but you have a lot of stuff to connect to other stuff using them. Minimetro is even more extreme in this, with only 2 features being necessary: stations and lines. Through this, the game also manages to become complex using the same principles as Motorways. During week 6, you will most likely face a situation where you will have to connect a station on the other side of a river with your network, but you will not have bridges. This will require you to pause the game and reorganize your network, often making it less optimized until you gain that one necessary bridge. You will also most likely have the option to expand that one tiny connector line you created earlier, making it actually useful beyond that one use case. Stations will also overcrowd more and more. And more. And more! Week 6 will most likely mark the point when overcrowding becomes really commonplace. During week 6 in Motorways, a whole new color of shop will most likely appear. Near the end of the week, crossing will become really crowded and congestion will occur, necessitating some replanning. This may take the form of rerouting roads, building a motorway, or building a roundabout. Soon, week 6 ends. Week 6 is the point at which you get the first actual hints that shit is really about to hit the fan. Whether that be via overcrowding, congestion, or simply the fact that the game becomes much more stressful. But even though the game is becoming more complex, the gameplay mechanics don't actually change. It is still just connect this with this to achieve this. But because of the quantity of things to connect and less options to connect them, the difficulty curve is really smooth and satisfying. The visuals and music match this as well. The visuals are so simple, yet so fitting with the theme of the game and the simplicity of its basic mechanics that it almost feels like they are taunting you. Richard Vreeland's score is also fitting, gaining in intensity as more stuff starts occurring. But the music doesn't gain any new elements. The elements stay the same, the notes stay the absolute same as they were at the beginning of the game. They are just more frequent and overlaid with each other. In Minimetro, week 7 is the first really stressful week. We start the week off with several stations overcrowding. Most resolve themselves, but some require you to place trains on different lines to resolve them. Some close calls will also occur, only resolving themselves extremely close to failure. After a while, a station will overcrowd just a bit too much for your comfort. You quickly attempt to drag a train from another line onto the problematic one, but the train needs to finish the existing leg of its journey to be transferred. Soon, a train will most likely stop at the station, picking some passengers up and saving the situation. But another train arrives right after, dropping some more passengers off and restoring the shitty status quo. Richard Vreeland's score is accompanying this issue with rapid ticking. You quickly attempt some last-minute rearrangement, but the station won't budge. The network will fail. And so it does. The camera zooms in and the game over screen appears. Overcrowding at the station has forced your metro to close. In Motorways, week 7 is fairly uneventful. Some congestion may occur, but nothing game-breaking up until its end, when the first shop will most likely begin complaining. Luckily, the upgrade screen appears before the shop fails completely, but another shop will respond and begin complaining as well. So we just hope that the problem will somehow resolve itself. Maybe it will be sustainable enough so that our network won't collapse on itself before the end of the week. But the circle keeps filling up. More shops throughout the map begin complaining, and some more appear, drawing your attention away from the issue, which is the last thing you need right now. As the circle fills up almost completely, one final car enters, a last glimpse of hope. But no matter, since soon the network will fail. And so it does. The camera zooms in and a game over screen appears. Too few cars could reach the destination in time. Your city shut down. You can think of this chapter as a conclusion of sorts, a final note on these two games after exploring them throughout the video. During this video, we have learned one main lesson. Minimetro and Motorways start off slowly but get progressively more complex as time goes on. Both games begin as easy time wasters with only a few stations and one line being necessary and available in Minimetro, and even less, just one house and one shop being available in Motorways. But this beginning will always become more and more complex, leading to your system eventually failing. Minimetro is much more fast-paced than Motorways, at least in my opinion. It requires more reorganization and adaptation by the player, while Motorways requires more pre-planning, since rapid reorganization of the network is commonly not possible. This is all achieved with just a few elements, 2 in Minimetro and 4 in Motorways. At the beginning of the game they are sparse, but as the game progresses their quantity increases, requiring much thought. The visual design of the game matches well. It is also sparse and minimalist, but when more and more stuff is on the screen, it appears more complex, although keeping the same elements as in the beginning. The game's score is in keeping with the gameplay and visual design. It is composed of few nodes, but because it generates procedurally as the player increases the complexity of their network, it fits well with the game. A procedural soundtrack is exactly what this game needs. A rigid, stale, repeating soundtrack would not sit well with the gameplay and visuals that are constantly changing and increasing in intensity. Point is, in both these games we witness masterful balance of gameplay, visual design and music, which all increase in tandem with each other, creating a smooth, satisfying difficulty curve that feels just right, because it is accompanied by rising, escalating music, and increasingly more and more complex visuals, making use of few elements at its core. This is the lesson in Minimetro and Motorways. Making use of few elements in both gameplay, art and music, the game manages to create a satisfying difficulty experience that keeps the player hooked and entertained for hours on end, which is every piece of entertainment's ultimate goal.